So right now, for instance, the Germans, in this case, they have create the Panzerwaffe or fortify the West Wall. Now, some of these aren't exactly historically accurate, but they're more of a sort of this is the thing that could have happened, like the Anschluss, that that totally happened and all that. Is there anything in there where it's just like there is a 10% chance, 20% chance that something completely off the wall is going to happen there?
A lot of the historical ones have kind of branching paths where different stuff can happen. A lot of it depends on kind of weights. So if you go, say, in the Sudetenland and you don't have an army, for example, then the AI will react quite differently in the events than if you actually had a full army at this point. As for you asked earlier about kind of like the balance between historical accuracy and railroading and stuff like that. So the idea behind these is to kind of shift the AI towards a historical path, right? But there's always kind of random options that affect other stuff. There's also a whole bunch of alternate history goals as well as so these are all like what we call like the historical goals, that stuff that we specifically script for a certain nation. And for example, Japan has basically two paths, which is one is what they did historically, and the other one is kind of building up more of an aggression together with Germany against Russia, for example. And this was something that was, discussed at the time inside Japan. And we've done little things like this for a bunch of nations. And then we also have kind of a fallback, what we call generic goals, that are not specifically made for a certain country, and anyone who fulfills whatever requirements we set are going to get that. So I think what you're looking at there should be a bunch of those kind of like improving infrastructure, kind of like general improving your nation or building up defensive lines and stuff like that kind of are generic and could show up for anyone. A bunch of these goals are also kind of, they interact with other nations. So for example, when you start demanding the Sudetenland, then this actually shows up to so Britain and France and stuff, and they get a chance to respond. And there's kind of weights for the AI for all this stuff that can kind of shift it in different directions. So it's not just you doing the goal, it will bounce back and forth. And the goals have little progress bars showing you like all the sub goals you need to complete, and you can see where it's going on if you're like waiting on a diplomatic response from somewhere and stuff like that.
Jakob, have you had any interesting experiences so far with strange events that don't exactly unfold as you would expect it to?
Well, I was surprised that the French actually fought back. I started the war a bit earlier because I was feeling cocky.
Yeah, as you do.
As you do. So it went rather well in Poland. They fought a little bit better than I expected as well. The Poles actually fought quite well in the war. Better in the war than people tend to remember.
I had a couple of...
But all of a sudden, without me looking, the French, the dirty French, had nabbed the München from me. Or Munich from me.
But down here?
Yes. So I wasn't paying that much of attention. So it was... Yes. But I sent 25 Panzer divisions towards him. And then I had to stop. So hopefully it will solve itself.
Yeah, yes. I had a similar problem where I was happily pushing straight into Warsaw after the Ribbentrop Pact, and then I looked towards my western flank, and all of a sudden there were French divisions in Frankfurt, which was less than optimal, I'm afraid. Yeah. So what are you gonna do? Of course, there is also a chance at certain events they don't fire in your way. So, for instance, I had an experience like that earlier where I demanded the Sudetenland from Czechoslovakia, and they said, no, you cannot have it, which meant that I had to invade. And everybody's happy with it because, those people in the Sudetenland, they are ethnic Germans, and they were disgruntled, therefore they,
it's always been a historic region of Germany.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
So you came in as a savior, is what you said.
Well, no. I
flags on your uniform.
No, there were a whole bunch of militias there, and a couple of my troops decided to go on vacation. That's perfectly fine.
Yes, exactly.
These sort of things happen. So there is that, but right now a lot of internal testing, from what I understand, is going on with Germany, because obviously the main instigator in this particular scenario.
But did you have an Ethiopia incident as
well? There are still issues with the balance in the game.
I don't know.
Or it was brilliant.
It was great. Let's put it that way. But I don't think it was completely within It's okay, Don. Would you like to explain what happened?
Well, so Matt came to me the other day and it's like, you got to see this, and I don't know exactly like if you let the game running or something while not looking, because I'm not sure how it happened, but we came and looked, and Ethiopia had actually invaded. It's first taken Corsica or something, and I think then jumped on to taking Rome from Italy.
Yeah, I have a screenshot available. I don't know if we're going to post it. We will probably end up posting at some point. But basically, Ethiopia had taken everything up to Abruzzo and everything in the north of... And then they demanded peace, which the Italians accepted. So the Italians are historically accurate in this particular case. So
I am completely realistic.
Now we should be nice to the Italians.
Martial force.
So basically, Ethiopia took all of southern Italy, which was slightly unexpected, and we're not quite sure yet how. We're not quite sure how they did it. Actually at this point, because
the AI does not actually do naval invasions at the moment. There, it's not supposed to anyway. So either it bypassed that, or my guess is that they managed to actually acquire military access the entire way there through
the United Kingdom,
or allied up with people and kind of
or you created Skynet.
Yeah,
and the AI is learning itself.
Yeah.
I'm still thinking. Well, let's put it this way. I sent my Stukas in very quickly, and the problem was removed from the map. Let's put it that way. So there were no issues.
Stukas are a little bit too good at the moment.
No, they are totally fine. They are historically powerful. It's fine. They don't have the air horns on their bottoms though, which is kind of
not yet.
It's just kind of a sad thing.
Not yet.
Did that actually have any positive effect?
Scare the shit out of people.
Yeah, man, low morale.
The bombs sort of sorted out.
Yeah, but the bombs only hit certain places.
But if I were in an air attack, I wouldn't go like, there's bomb everywhere, people die. We're like, oh, they also have a horn.
Yeah,
but that would be the least.
No, but it's the same effect of roaming around in, say, somewhere in the Levant, and an A-10 flies over. You will shit yourself as soon as you hear that gun.
But you wouldn't put an extra horn on it. Going like,
no, but that's a similar effect.
It is a bit more.
It is a sound. It is a sound designed to scare the shit out of you, and then run away. So. Then on the other hand, I'm quickly going through here, obviously with the policies down here, when we create these companies that are working. For instance, right now, my main naval manufacturer is Blohm & Voss, and I have Henschel, the #1 tank builder in Germany around this time, I would personally say. Could we, you've already answered this on the forum, but just to reiterate, can we have, for instance, Porsche and Henschel at the same time?
Not at the same time. You basically can only pick one. It's a little bit to simulate these kind of competitions, say that the government would run, who would present the next prototype. Now you can switch companies. It costs you some political power to switch around who's your producer, and because the effect you get, like the change in the equipment, is when it finishes researches. So the important is, who did you use to research this equipment?
Right. If I have Blohm & Voss or Germania Werf in this particular case, yeah.
So if you want to have them distinctly different, you'll want to queue up your research so that you kind of switch as your new thing, as you start researching your new thing.
All right. Cool. So that's yeah. Did you actually have any problems finding the logos to these companies?
Yes.
Could you go into detail about that?
Some are very easy to find. Some didn't even have logos. Like Russia is quite difficult because they have like design bureaus, not really companies. So in some cases we've just sort of winged it, or we've gone with kind of like logos that would have been used much later, if they were appropriate.
Yep. Okay. And how did you work around, say, like intellectual property? For instance, we have the logos of these German companies in the game. For instance, we got IG Farben and Germania Werf and stuff like that. How did that work?
Well, the thing is, it's not actually protected by intellectual property when you use logos like that. So it's okay to use them as long as you don't kind of do crazy stuff with it. Mm-hmm. Especially when it's old logos from the time period, because you're just basically reflecting history.
Right, and IG Farben doesn't exist.
It's different than, say, like a racing game that is using like a car designed by someone, because that is
Heard.
is owned, but this is different. So
Okay. Somebody was actually asking, why does Adolf now have a tie instead of his Iron
someone
Cross?
noticed.
Yes.
Thank you very much. There was some
Casual fighting.
casual art fighting / arguments about Hitler actually having an Iron Cross earlier. The reason he had an Iron Cross was I called our one of our artists when I was in San Francisco. I think I was like, Hitler needs to look cooler. Can you give him a cool medal? And,
So you gave him the Iron Cross.
He did have the Iron Cross.
No, he didn't.
Well,
Yes,
yeah, but
He wouldn't wear it.
Nobody
He wouldn't wear it,
had
'cause-
on it.
yeah. So well, I kind of, I kind of backed down on that one. Still think he looked cooler before, but some people think historical accuracy is more important. So
Okay. Let's say that in the historical case of Germany conquering France, does Germany get access to Renault?
access to
Renault, the company that makes tanks in France.
Not right now, at least. We've discussed maybe doing something like that, but that's not how it works now, at least.
Okay, cool. I'm quickly going through some of the stuff here. Apparently, you're adding a lot of flavor that was badly missed in Hearts of Iron 3. Well done.
Thank you.
When it comes to, can you at any time during war go for total economic mobilization, or as you call it at one point in your Death Diary, scraping the barrel, or do you need to win and or lose an X amount of fights, or can you enact it whenever?
I'm not sure if I remember the trigger on that one right now. I think you're allowed to. The thing is, then just not really a straight kind of upgrade path to these laws. So if you go for scraping the barrel, it's gonna seriously hurt your ability to gain experience, because you basically, grabbing random idiots into your divisions. So it will impact it will impact training time. You can't get as high experience levels, but you do get more manpower if that's what you need.
But it's a desperate act.
Yes.
Yep.
So it depends if it's worth kind of.
But you wouldn't do it if you still have manpower, I guess.
Probably
More,
not. It might be cases where it might be useful, like preemptively, say, once you're inside Russia and you just need a ton of people.
Yeah.
It might be smart to do it. They do also impact economy. So the more people you put into your military, the worse it's going to be for running industry. So if your problem is manpower, then you can do it, but that's going to hurt your industrial output. So you try to make them more like a trade-off. Of course, there's a certain level, like just going to military economy is, of course, nice in war.
Yeah, you can get all the factories working to build all the panzers.
Yeah, but we have basically this kind of like free level. Oh, I think I just slipped into economic policies now, economic laws, but yeah, there's like 3 different levels really of like you're isolated, which is kind of limiting, and then you have kind of a gradient of laws in between there, and then once you're at war, there's a couple to choose from. But the idea is that there's both pros and cons to all of them.
Of course. Somebody in the chat is asking whether or not we can show them the wheelchair RPG troops.
Oh, they're still in the game?
I'll go to the actual panel in question that they're referring to, if you don't mind. So if you go into the research panel, and specifically the land doctrine one, on the
down on the left
on the mobile warfare one, there is this one right here called non-discriminatory conscription, which involve a man in a wheelchair carrying a Panzerfaust.
Yeah, so they're not discriminating against who they're hiring to
Very
fire their
progressive.
Panzerfaust.
Yeah, I agree. Sometimes you gotta be progressive about these sort of things.
Yeah, so that little branch is like a special one, even on top of these laws, where you really want to kind of squeeze out more manpower, I fear. And the idea is that this is kind of a temporary thing. If you just really go on offensive, like the German tree there is, you can kind of switch back. You're going to be losing all these advantages you had, but you can switch back to more offensive later.
Okay, cool. Is there going to be a full political cabinet similar to Hearts of Iron 3?
No.
Okay. Can you illustrate for those people out there that are not familiar with Hearts 3 how that system worked?
Okay,
and then compare it to
in
this?
Hearts 3 you had fixed cabinet positions for everything. You could pick people. What we do now is we identify a couple of positions where you'll have to choose one person, like head of military, an industrial guy, stuff like that. But the rest of the cabinet is kind of up to you to mix and match. So the idea is that we're not really representing the complete government. We are representing the part that you have direct control over because you have political power. So some of these ministers might cost an upkeep. So you might actually you might be forced to give up on them. Doesn't mean that they're not somewhere in the government. It just means that they're not directly doing exactly what you tell them to.